Your number one job at Porter Preston is to get along with and support your teammates.
Just a quick reminder for you to like, subscribe, and rate this podcast so we can get your feedback and know how to make it better.
Hey, it's Ari. Welcome to another episode of the Made in America podcast. Today, I'm with Jack Birtwell, president and owner of Porter Preston. How you doing, Jack?
I'm doing real well, Ari.
Well,
nice
thank
to be
you.
here.
So, it's great to have you on, my friend. Listen, it's the Made in America podcast, Jack. So we start off with the same two questions. What do you make and why do you make it?
Well, we make and distribute window treatments and drapery hardware. And why we make it, it's kind of a long, stumbling story, but we felt a need for a local fabricator, particularly who understood automation and motorization, which when we started the business was really more of a niche type of thing and has really grown and grown. A lot of technology has improved, and we're really a leader in that, particularly in our main market of the Northeast, but in a lot of other areas in the country as well.
So if I'm sitting listening to this podcast or watching this video at home, it's like what you guys do is the blinds that help people like sort of control light coming in and out of their windows, but with a heavy focus on automation?
Yes, well, we do a lot of manual as well as the automated part.
Got it. So you said it's a long and winding story, the creation of Porter Preston and the why. And it is an interesting story. So I'm going to ask you kind of what is the origin story of Porter Preston? How did it come to be?
Well, it kind of I worked for a retractable fabric awning company. And it was a wholesaler based up here in the Northeast, and we grew really well over the country. And then, certain things kind of fell apart. In my own part of the blame too. The owner of the company, we started butting heads, and so I found myself jobless. And shortly after that, the general manager...
You and the owner butted some heads, and you found yourself jobless. I like the way we frame that up.
For that. I got canned, right?
That's right. There's another saying for that. Yeah.
But so actually, he did me a favor. And when it happened, it was 3 days before my 50th birthday. I come home, and I was very, of course, upset at the office. By the time I got home, I was elated.
Really?
And I walked in the house, told my wife, and she goes, "What? What?" And I said, "Honey, this is great. How are we going to pay our bills?" But within 3 days, she said, "You have done nothing but talk about how you'd run it if you had your own business. Now's your chance. Do it." Wow. And so then the general manager got let go as well, and we started talking, and we decided to let's explore a business of motorizing window treatments. I had some friends in the motor distribution manufacturing business. They're the ones who were telling me, get into window treatments. And it took about a year. We explored it, and the next thing you know, we have a factory in Waterbury, and we're making mini planes.
No kidding.
Well, we signed up with a company called Level or Curse to be a local fabricator of theirs. They referred a lot of their existing business to us, and mini blinds were a big thing in the contract world, and also kind of like the most boring thing in the world.
For those that don't know, what's a mini blind?
A mini blind's like 1 inch slat of metal.
Yeah. With the little spinner on the right, you spin it to open, spin it to close.
A cord and a tilter, but they were very big in the contract world in office buildings.
What year are we talking about?
That was 2022. We incorporated. We really launched early 2023. Oh, Jesus!
I was going to say
2002.
Yeah.
2003.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's 21 years ago.
Yep.
And so the mini blinds were a savior for us because we did the Levelor brand. And it's like Kleenex.
Yeah,
right?
They're flying off the shelves.
And so we're making thousands of them, out of our little factory in Waterbury, along with wood blinds and honeycomb shades and vertical blinds, all shoehorned in this little space. And so that's how we really got started. It was a real struggle for a few years, building the customer base, but also, building the team. Mm-hmm. And I never realized how difficult and long it takes to really build a good team. Mm-hmm. And we really started clicking on that maybe 10, 12 years ago. We have quite a few employees that have been with us 18 years, 20 years for a 21-year-old company, and they're still there. And so anyway, that grew, and we did that basically for, 6, 7 years. Then the market started shifting away from mini blinds into roller shades like you have here in your office here. Mm-hmm. And that became a small part of our business, and it grew and grew and grew. So we stopped manufacturing mini blinds, honeycomb shades, vertical blinds, and wood blinds, and just focused on manufacturing the roller shades while getting a distribution arrangement with another manufacturer for their brand of the residential shades.
Wow.
And so we distribute, to bring us up to date now, the manufacturing of roller shades is 3/4 of our business. That and distributing fabric, and it was for the shades, once again, this type of fabric. And also, but then with the distribution part, which is drapery hardware, curtain rods for a better word. My wife said to me once, I never thought I'd have to say the day that my husband sells curtain rods. It's been, so that's a decent part of our business, although a bit smaller than the roller shade part. The roller shade part we sell what ends up in residential, commercial being a building like this, and hospitality, which has been really big for us, meaning hotels.
Yeah, sure, hotels.
And we ship to hotels across the country out of our little place over here in Waterbury.
Well, that's a lot there and a lot to unpack. I think there's always a really interesting, journey when you see a business that learns how to sort of pivot, right? Because you talked about initially kind of originally the mini blinds and the honeycomb and what you were doing there. And then now to pivot to have now the majority of your business being something totally different. So I do want to talk about that a little bit. But let's go back a little bit to the origin story. So you talk about getting laid off or terminated, canned in your words, at 50 years old. What was that like? I mean, angry at first, but by the time you got home, you were already happy about it?
It was because I loved the business I was in. I loved the industry. I loved my coworkers, but I was really frustrated in my job. And so that's no way to live.
No.
To me, I'm a positive person, and I was saying, it wasn't positive for me. It caused a lot of stress and unhappiness. And so now it's at that, well, it's up to you now, kid.
Yeah.
You make it or break it. I had job offers. I was well known in the industry.
I bet.
And I just decided, no, I got to try this. I figure I could always get back in the job market in a year or two if I had to. And fortunately, I haven't had to.
Yeah, fortunately, for sure. Do you remember what kind of gave you the courage? I think there's a lot of people that would love to maybe try and start their own business, but then they find themselves with a wife, maybe kids, a mortgage, and they feel like the time has passed them by. What gave you the courage to go strike out on your own with all that having so many commitments already in your life at that point?
Well, I had all those things. I had the mortgage, I had the kid, I had the wife, and what gave me the courage was my wife. Because a lot of women would have said, "Look, you got a job, you can make really good money. Let's take it. We'll just rock and roll right on from here." And she's the one that said, "No, you've talked about doing this. I'm tired of hearing it, baby." No, but seriously, go forward, try it, do it. She didn't even say try. She just said do it. And looking back at it, I don't know if I ever would have done it again because I didn't really know what I was doing. You read a few business books and you think you know what you're doing. You have these philosophies. I thought that the hiring of people and being like in the HR role would be so rewarding. I hate it.
Yeah.
I love the people I work with, and I love interacting with them. I touch everybody every day I'm there. I go around to speak with them.
Yeah.
Just take a lap around the place, and I work, closely with 3 or 4. Right. But then when it comes down to raise reviews and all this type of stuff, I thought I would love that. And I realized shortly thereafter I didn't care for it at all. It's like, what do you want to talk about? We got stuff to do. Get to work.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, say hi to your wife.
Yeah, the accountability part of HR is tough. Man, so you, looking back, feel like that boost from your life partner is what really gave you the courage to start this whole thing in the first place?
Absolutely. Without her support, it would have been, I shouldn't have taken the risk because it was a risk. Right, and without, and if I have to have the risk trying to make this thing work and coming back out getting support, it wouldn't have been right for both of us, either of us, I should say. And so that just gave me the courage.
So good decision in hindsight now, 20 years later?
Yeah.
Great decision.
Asked me 10 years ago. It was lean for quite a few years.
Took a while to get it off the ground.
It really did. Well, if we continually grew, but if you understand like the tax system in this country, it almost it's like that's almost your biggest enemy.
Yeah.
The company's making money, you're not taking it, but you got to pay taxes.
Yeah.
And but it has so many rewards. When you go in the office and there's that buzz going on and people running around and happy people.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yep. That is fantastic. And then you did something else interesting. You decided to start with a partner. So you had known, your partner is Stephen Gilmore?
Yes.
And so you had known Steve from working at the previous company.
Correct.
And had you guys talked previously, like, I don't know, over drinks or at lunch or something about this business idea? Or did you approach him? Like, how did you guys come together?
Well, we never talked. We'd have over drinks and lunches before then. We'd talk about what a nut. No, I mean, I got to keep this positive.
Yes.
And so, no, but seriously, we never really discussed it until all of a sudden, we were both unemployed. And so that's when we had the lunch and said, what are you going to do? He says, I don't know. What are you going to do? And I said, I'm thinking of starting a business. And I'm thinking of motorizing window treatments. And he said, well, what type of business can this be? And I said, don't know. But I just didn't know if you'd be interested. Because A, I know I couldn't do it by myself. And B, it'd take some funding that would take more than one person that I really wanted to commit to. And so we started talking about it, exploring it, and then some pretty decent opportunities opened up where we had two brand names both making us offers to move forward with their brand name. And so we made, it was a kind of like draw the line down the center of the paper, or which one are we going to go with? And we're confident to this day we made the right choice. Even though that was kind of a rocky road at time with them, it would have been worse with the other.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Right? And the best thing about it is that Steve Gilmore's a great guy.
Yeah.
Right? And in 21 years of our marriage, almost, you'd call it, being a business partner, we've almost argued twice. And got real close once. I'll say it but that's in 21 years.
Yeah.
And that to me is, speaks well, pretty amazing.
When you think about look, it's got to be called a successful partnership. First of all, it's lasted this long. The business has been successful. You're here smiling. You're talking about how great the employees are there. People have stayed. The business has grown. When you think about what you've had to do to maintain that strong partnership, that you guys can still work together and have a successful business, what do you think has been the secret to the success, or the items you guys have done to keep it successful?
When thinking about it, because I haven't really thought about it in those words before, is that both of us are positive people. Mm-hmm. Neither of us are greedy. Mm-hmm. And that, I think, is what damages a lot of partnerships, is what happens when things don't go well. Mm-hmm. What happens when you have to go out and borrow more money. And where one person might not want to do it, the other does. We both just have always done what's best for the company, thinking the company's needs come first. But it comes down to just a lot of the personalities of the two. We're both positive, kind of fun people. He brings a lot to the table in terms of helping with decisions, thinks of things I don't all the time, right? And so that's just kind of how it worked. I mean, you get two good people together, then a lot of those potential issues go away.
Do you guys have when you first were going into the business, did you kind of run headlong and say, we'll figure it out as we go? Did you sort of structure how you were going to work together? Was it more planned or more like, let's just go get it?
Kind of a combination of both. If we had it planned, it was always in flux.
That's right.
All of a sudden I'm thinking, we're taking on this product line. I couldn't figure it out. I'll have Steve do it. 5 minutes later, he walks in my office and says, about that product line? He said, you got to handle that. I can't do it. And I says, well, then you got that.
Yeah.
You take HR. That was one of the
That's right. That's right.
And so if we figured it out as we went along, which was kind of maybe not the best way to do a business. When we were applying to the Waterbury Development Corporation for some help early on. And then they said, I'd like to see your business plan. And I said, which one? It changes every 3 months.
That's right.
Right, and I was actually doing it on this business planning program, and looking back on it, it's just like a lot of wishful thinking. I may as well have been playing Monopoly, And And so then in the Waterbury Development Corporation, of course, well, no, you're not really making any money. We can't help you. But Waterbury Development Corporation became really important to us in future years. An incredible amount of help from that organization.
So in the beginning, they said no?
Yes.
Because they felt you weren't profitable enough?
Yeah, but we weren't.
Well, they were
And
right.
They didn't want to jump down that hall.
So, wow, I got so many questions. Let me just go back again. So, listen, I think what you're saying, and I completely agree with it. You got to do some planning, but there's way many people that spend way too much time planning and not enough time doing.
Absolutely. And the thing is, the proof's in the pudding. You got to get out and do it. And but then, one of the things about business planning does is you start to think in terms of that. Well, why am I spending my money on this? Why am I spending my money on that? That would be wonderful to do, but where's the payback in it? And so it helps you set up, like an analytical mindset. But then what are you going to be doing? What's your volume going to be in 5 years? And my son, our son, I should say, is taking his MBA courses right now. And he reached out to me, hey, we have a lesson today is on sales forecasting. How do you do it? And I thought for a second, and I went online, and I found I cut the picture of a magic 8-ball and emailed it to him. This has been the tool I've used most of my adult life. And so now everyone in our office has one on their desk.
Oh, that's
If you're
funny.
ever confused about what to do,
Ask the
that's
magic
just
8-ball.
as accurate as about anything else, right?
That's funny.
I mean, who could have predicted 2008 and 9,
Yeah.
10? Who could have predicted the pandemic?
Right.
Nobody. And yet those things happen. They happen twice, and then, but thankfully other things didn't happen. Going to my son again, he said, Dad, have you ever experienced anything like this pandemic before? I said, no, nothing like it. And I said, there's been Ebola and all these scares you hear about. They've always been somewhere else.
Yep.
Right? And he says, well, what about Pop, my father?
Yeah.
And I said, oh, he did. And he said, what? World War II.
Sure, yeah.
Right? So we're blessed when we haven't had that. Right? But we've had these other things, and who knows what's around the corner, things you can't possibly predict. And so being small enough business-wise, we're just kind of like at the pedal pressed all the time.
Pedal to the metal.
But it's just, do what you can do.
Yep.
You don't go crazy and doing stupid things, but, you get your plan and you go to execute it and keep your ears open to see what's going on around you.
Yeah, you just never know where it could end up. So talk about a little bit about, we've talked a little bit about sort of pivoting through the business. And so, you got into the business and you talked about some motorized blinds, but it sounds like initially the business was really all about the mini blinds and wasn't as much about the motorized when you first started.
Well, that's kind of by accident. We
Under
started
the
off-
banner of better to be lucky than good, is that?
there's a lot to be said.
Yeah, there
and
is.
you keep it's the harder you work, the luckier
You
you
get.
right?
That's right.
And so we started off exploring it strictly through the motorization angle. And at first I thought it would be me in my garage doing this, and it could have been profitable even at that small type of level. But then we went to the window fashion show, right, which at the time was huge. Hunter Douglas was the leader of the industry. He had an 80 by 80 foot booth. And Leveler Kirsch were there. And if you remember, Leveler is like Kleenex for many blinds,
Yep.
brand name, so to speak. And the others, and we were, gosh, this industry is big. And through other people we knew through the previous business and their organizations, we got talking to 2 different companies about representing their brand up in the Northeast. And that's why I mentioned it won out over the other, and it became like a full-fledged fabricator, not just motorizing stuff. And I figured, well, if we get the business going and we're starting to provide the manual product, you can easily add the motorized product to that. And that did work to an extent, but the manual products, it's we didn't understand the business nearly as well as we should have. But sometimes that'd be good because we might not have done it otherwise.
Yeah, 100%. Look, I
Right.
think sometimes coming in with a fresh view, if you're too much in the industry, you're sort of in the industry orthodoxy. And sometimes you can't, I don't know, from what I've seen is sometimes when you're too deep in it, you see where it is very clearly, but you don't see where it could go. And it kind of can stifle innovation. Whereas coming in with a fresh view maybe allowed you guys to bring a perspective to try something different that other people weren't trying.
Well, that's so true on a few levels. We hired a couple industry veterans. We hired more than a couple. One worked out fantastically. The other 2, we're stuck in this mode. Well, people paying in 45, 60 days, that's just the industry standard.
Yeah.
And I says, my business can't run that way.
That's right.
I don't have the capital. Right? And so then you realize when we looked at it, like we brought such innovative things to the market, such as returning phone calls. We got so many compliments. I can't believe you called me back. No one calls people back in this business. I mean, if we're like, really? And because I've always focused on what I call business 101.
Yep.
You want to be successful, particularly in sales, know your stuff, show up on time, communicate, meaning return phone calls used to be now emails, texts.
Yep.
Reply. We have a policy at Porter Preston how many times, let's say in your life, someone said, let me look into that, I'll get back to you. Mm-hmm. 3 days later, you're going, what's going on? Mm-hmm. And you call the guy back and they say, oh, yeah, I'm still waiting to hear. Well, for all I knew, you forgot about me. Mm-hmm. In our business, with our people, it's, look, I'll look into this. It's noon now. I says, when do you have to have this info? And it says, I'm working on it, but either way, I have to wait for someone else. So either way, you'll hear from me by 5 this afternoon. And then at 5 this afternoon, if they know nothing, they reach out, maybe just an email. I'm still on it. You'll hear from me by noon tomorrow. You don't paint yourself into a corner and say, I'll call you back in 10 minutes.
10 minutes, yeah.
Because you might not be able to get that information there.
That's right.
And so then your customer just knows you're still there.
Yep.
And knows you care.
Yep.
And so I think that's helped our success a lot, in that we communicate. And that's one of the things outside of the industry norm, because the industry was so big.
Yeah.
In terms of, you look around how many shades you have in this office here and in this building here, and multiply that by a few million.
Right.
There's a lot.
There's a lot of shades, no doubt about it. So how did you end up, so you had one plan, then you pivoted to kind of doing the manual blinds, but then you pivoted off of that and ended up kind of going back to where you thought you were going to start?
Well, no, so the automation's a big part of our business, but, we sell thousands and thousands, manufacture thousands and thousands of shades a year. We probably automate 10 to 15% tops. Right?
Okay.
If you go into a hotel, most hotels have 2 shades in every room.
Yes.
We just finished a project that we shipped to Boston. It could have been Seattle for that matter. It was 900 windows, 1,800 shades.
Sure.
Right?
Did they do the automated, or was it manual?
A portion of them were. Some hotels will just do the ADA rooms. Right? So it's just make it more convenient. For the.
So that would explain, because one thing I was going to mention to you is I've been noticing, I travel a decent amount, and I've been noticing more and more hotels that I check into have the automated blinds. It didn't occur to me that it might be an ADA room issue, not just like a general room thing.
Some are general. We just did what I don't know if we got a brand name, Ruffles or Raffles. I always got it wrong, but it was like 600 motorized shades for their facility, and they're like a hotel and condos type of, restaurant type of
place.
And so, so the automation is very important, and there's been a few things that have really helped spur it on, such as rechargeable motors. Mm-hmm. So you don't have to do wiring in a house ahead of time, because that was really what was making it a much more expensive proposition.
Getting the power to the actual blinds.
Exactly. And getting the controls too. Because, if you're automating, it's often because you have a lot of shades.
Right.
And if you automate them, as you know, you will use them a lot.
Yep.
If you had to walk around here and pull a chain on what do we have here on the 9 shades, you just wouldn't do it.
You wouldn't do it.
You'd leave them down most of the time and just live with it.
Yep.
Right? So that's when automation's really a plus and makes the thing much more usable.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you do want to have them open and close more regularly, I agree. The automation makes a really big difference. So as you've tried to manage the manufacturing of the business, has it been difficult to sort of figure out and plan like which products you want to manufacture, which you want to distribute? Like how have you kind of figured that out?
We look for critical mass. If we're going to manufacture it, we got to be able to do a lot of it, right? And since we pretty much shifted totally to manufacturing just roller shades, we do list systems for workrooms, and what that means is if someone who's workrooms manufacture custom draperies, Roman shades, things out of fabric. They sew them up, and so we make a system where they attach like a Roman shade to it, and they can raise it up and down, either motorized or manual. So we have a smaller department that does that. We fabricate motorized drapery tracks, And we also fabricate commercial drapery tracks that are just like those wand things with the pulleys.
Yeah.
Right? That's a Curse product that we fabricate. Now, so the difference between fabrication and manufacturing makes like almost everything that goes in it.
Yep.
Right? And fabricating means we're buying parts from others and assembling them in different configurations.
What's the difference between fabrication and assembly?
What's that?
What's the difference between?
I don't know that one because we stop at being a fabricator.
Got it.
That's what our industry calls us.
Got it.
Where we buy from manufacturers.
Got it.
Buy clutches, brackets, motors. We don't make the motors, obviously.
Yeah. So, it's funny, as we've talked about all the stuff you do, the thing that I see that lights you up the most and gets you the most excited is when you talk about sort of the people in the business and the fun and the environment in the business. Is that something that you think about sort of, I think, to what people now would call kind of company culture? Like, do you think about building a company culture? Is that intentional, something that you spend time on?
Well, it started off as just being who we are. And this includes my business partner as well and my wife. We like to have fun. And to me, we have a harmony policy. It's what it's called. After learning a lot of this the hard way.
Yeah.
Because my philosophy is, you're going to be here over half your waking hours 5 days a week.
Yep.
Should you be hanging around with people you don't like, or the people that aren't likable?
Yeah.
Right? No. And so I don't care how smart someone is. If they're not fun to be around, I don't want them around. And generally, and so if you think of it that way, you're going to go to a party. If there's a party of a bunch of jerks or a party of a bunch of fun people, which party are you going to go to?
Go with the fun people.
Right? And so then when you get people with a good work ethic, with a good attitude, more work gets done better because they help each other, they work with each other, and you always have to kind of stay on top of it because not everyone has a good day every day. And sometimes you have to tell someone, you don't seem like you're having a good day. Man, hang out in your office or take the afternoon off. Seriously. Because to me, it's important. What you have in life is time. That's all anyone has. And the thing is, it's like you got this hourglass going. You don't know how many grains are left up top. Because once they're done, they're done. You're dead. Right? And so how are you going to spend your time? Dealing with a bunch of people you don't like or dealing with people you do like? Right? And so I'm just amazed when I look around at, and I don't just mean diverse in terms of race, but diverse in terms of age, who you are, what your background is, where'd you come from, where are you going? And we have a group of people you look at, how would I have ever met this group before? Never. They're tall, skinny, wide, dark hair. I mean, it makes me smile to walk in and deal with them because they all have a different way of going about how they are. They have different skill sets and different things they're better at. But if they're all good at being good people and being fun to be around, it just makes it for a better day for everybody.
No question about it.
Not to mention, it's better business.
And you call it the harmony policy.
Yeah, well, that's it. Because your number one job at Porter Preston is to get along with and support your teammates. If you can't do that, you can't be here.
Number one job to get along with and support your teammates.
And so, but you think about that. That entails, if you put that into a fabrication situation, a customer service organization, that just makes your team better.
Oh, yeah.
And so then you have less people leave. And we get people to leave, but we have an average retention there is about 8 years right now.
Wow.
Right? And so then you're spending less time training people. Right now we're training a couple people, and it's a pain. Because you hire someone new, it's a negative.
Yeah.
In terms of production. Because it takes someone who could be producing, teaching someone who doesn't know how yet.
Right.
Be it a customer service role or an entry role, whatever. Right? And so then it's valuable. Like owner of Costco talks about that. Why do you pay so well? Because I don't like training people, right? People stay.
Yeah.
If you create a good environment. And we've done a good job of that. Could we do better? Always. Could we do worse? Absolutely. Because it's always a moving target. You got to keep your eye on the ball.
How do you do it? Like when you think about when you, I mean, look, to your point, this is not something that sort of can happen by accident. The image that I keep having in my mind is sort of like tending to a garden. You know, it seems like you spent some time building this great garden, and now you're in sort of like you're in tending mode, right? You have to continue to tend it and prune it, just like you said. Every once in a while, you got to bring in a new plant, and you know what? That's a pain because you got to figure out where it goes. You got to give it a little extra watering till it takes off. And I was just thinking about this the whole time. It sort of feels like the training aspect. But just like a good garden, a great culture doesn't happen by accident.
Right, but you got to choose your plants carefully.
Yeah, that's fair.
To go further on that.
Yeah, I like it. I like it.
You get the low maintenance plants. I mean, there's some.
Now we're talking some language I can understand. I like the low maintenance. Good job.
No, but it's like that, right?
Yeah.
And you get the low maintenance plants that produce a lot of fruit, as opposed to something that might be gorgeous and beautiful, but it's finicky and a pain in the neck.
Pain in the neck.
And takes more time than it needs.
So do you have a particular like interview or recruiting process that you use to try and find the right people?
Yes, well, we have two people that run HR in our business, Michelle and Margie, and they pretty much have their thing down of doing. I don't remember which websites they use now. Inside there's ZipRecruiter we used for quite a while.
Sure.
And so they'd get them in, they'd interview them. This is particularly more for the office jobs. Let's say this is our routine. And if they vet them and they think, hey, this is the person I think we should take a chance with, then they generally say, Jack, you want to talk with them. And I'm kind of looking to be a rubber stamp in almost a sense. But if I talk to them, I never have yet seen any red flags because their judgment is pretty darn good.
Yep.
But then we take the rest of the office staff and have them. I'll walk out of my office. They'll walk in 1, 2, 3 at a time, and just visit with this person to get to know them. And because I'm telling them, they know what the routine is now. You're interviewing them, and you're going to tell me if you want to work with them, right? And then I'm walking around outside, and what I'm looking for that I will always see on the good ones is laughter. For some reason, there's 4 people in the office. They're all laughing about something. And they're all seem to be gelling and getting along. Then 2 will leave, and 1 or 2 more go in. And as they leave, I ask our people, "What do you think?" And so basically, we're getting 2 things done with this. Number 1, the rest of the coworkers are buying in.
Sure.
They're saying, because they know this person is the right choice will help them.
Yep.
And also the right choice will be someone that they'll enjoy being around.
Yep.
Right. And so when they say yes. Well, now if there's a problem with this person later, don't complain to me. You're the one.
Everyone's
that said
part of the
to hire them,
decision.
Right?
That's
but
right.
It pretty much needs to be unanimous. And sometimes I'll come out, I'm not 100%, but I'd say do it. I think they can be good, right? And then the flip side of this is when that person comes in on their first day, they're not a stranger.
Yeah.
How many times have you ever been working in a place, all of a sudden, oh, this is Shelley. She's your new coworker. Hope you like her. I mean, so then when that person comes in, and I've heard this from them, they're so much more comfortable because they know everyone by first name. They spent, even if it was just 5 minutes with them.
Yeah.
So, and it seems to be working. We've been doing that for about 8 years maybe.
And you made a big difference.
I think so. It's tough to quantify certain things. It makes me feel good.
Yeah. Well, you keep on doing it, and it seems to be working. What else do you do to try and make Porter Preston a great environment for people to work and run their career at?
Let's see, someone asked yesterday, how come your Christmas tree is still up? Because we don't take our Christmas tree down. And there's one lady in the office that recruits help, and it's right now it's decorated for Easter.
Got it.
Next will be Mother's.
So it's really not a Christmas tree; it's a holiday tree that rotates through the various holidays.
Tree.
A celebration tree.
We still call it the Christmas tree.
Got it. But when you say you decorated your Christmas tree for Easter, I think it loses the Christmas tree part.
Oh, it
right?
lost that because we had St. Patrick's Day up there.
Got it. Okay, so it was the St. Patty's Day tree at one point.
It's changed about no longer than every 60 days.
Got
Mother's
it.
Day will be next. And then I was asking a lady in the office, so what did we do? And she said, Mother's Day and 4th of July. I said, you're forgetting Father's Day?
Nah, yeah.
And Memorial Day.
That's
and
right.
It said, be 4th of July, Labor Day, Thanksgiving.
And then we're back to Christmas again.
And so I think that what they really think is it just beats the hell out of having to take the tree down and put it away. Which was, we used to do that for a long time, and it was always sit up there till like the end of January, half the ornaments have fallen off.
Yeah.
So
That's great.
But that's like a small fun thing. A few years ago, I'm an old Blues Brothers fan.
Yeah.
I know if you're a little young, but
I know the Blues Brothers. Sure.
I love that music. And Jane, my wife, and I went and saw them down Ridgefield in December of 2018. It was about 18, I think it was. And so, and we saw them, Blues Brothers Revival show tribute band, right? And as we walked out, it was so good. And we both said, man, we both should have worn our shades. There's only like 2 people in the audience with shades on.
That's it?
Yeah. And so then, I don't know if you've ever been to the Cape down in Old Saybrook. It's a wonderful place to see music.
Okay.
And so I'm on their list, and I get an email, Blues Brothers tribute band's coming in April. And this was like first week of January. So I went online, no tickets had sold. So I bought like 4 or 6 tickets right in the front row. And then I started talking like to John's wife, Michelle. Hey, I'd love to go. John loves it. And so next thing I know, I bought 24 tickets. We owned the first 3 rows. And we chartered a bus because it's an hour drive from Porter Preston. And I bought hats and ties for everybody.
And shades.
Everyone has shades.
Okay, got it. They can bring their own shades.
But so we all had the hat, we all had the ties, we all had the shades, and the ladies just wore a white top with a dark jacket. And
That's
so they
lovely.
had polka dots and all sorts of, like men would just wear a shirt, but women would have, much wider wardrobe choices, let's say.
Yeah.
And so we have pictures of it. It was awesome. We all piled in the bus, and we had wine and beer and sandwiches to eat on the way down. And when the bus pulls up at the Cape, we all come marching in. All these people standing outside are taking our pictures. They figure we're with the band. But half the people coming never even heard of the Blues Brothers before.
But they had a great time.
They're young. We were dancing up on our feet the whole evening. It was so fun.
That's fantastic.
And then we bust them all back. Then pandemic hit after that. So, we've always had like picnics, retirement parties for a few people. We've had a few people retire lately. And so we try to do things, good community things, but at the same point, you have to realize you can't take away from their home life celebrations.
Yeah.
We're not going to come here on 4th of July.
Yeah.
We have we talked about the lake house. We have an annual party in the summer up at the lake house, take people tubing
Nice.
and all that type of stuff. And so we do a lot of those things.
That's great.
As to what we can. And just to you can foster a sense of community, but then you really want to lean it towards more work hours, just so you're not taking away from their private time.
Yeah. You always got to have that great balance. That all sounds really terrific. As we're kind of running out of time here, Jack, I do got to ask you a question. So the name of the business is Porter Preston.
Yes.
Your name is Jack. Your partner's name is Steve. Your last name is Birtwell. His last name, Gilmore. Thanks. His last name is Gilmore. I couldn't find my notes. But the name of the business is Porter Preston, and you guys started it together. So there's got to be a story behind this name.
Well, there is. There is. I was always this thing saying, hey, you can't use acronyms. Acronyms comes after, like IBM started as International Business Machines. It was so popular that
Right.
people shortened it to IBM.
Right.
Some people come out with a business right away and call it an acronym. It makes no sense, right? And so I felt a business name had to describe what the business does. And I was adamant about this
Got it.
22 years ago. And so I thought it was, actually for that first show we went to, I had cards printed up said Northeast Window Treatments or something, just so we had a card with our phone number on it to pass around, right? And then Steve comes up one day and says, Jack, what's your middle name? And my official name is John Porter Birtwell, Jr. And I said, Porter. And he said, mine's Preston. He said, we should call this business Porter Preston. I said, that's horrible. That's a dumb name. And he says, no, it's like sounds old, like, other big names in our industry, Hunter Douglas, right, which is the biggest one,
Yeah.
right? And I said, no, man, that's just stupid. No one will figure out what it means. He said, it's memorable. It's, it's an alliteration. There's 2 P's in it. And I said, no. And then he says, how about Preston Porter? And I said, that's even
worse.
So, and then finally, he wouldn't give up. So finally, I just said, enough already. Okay, I'll change it later, I'm thinking. And it's stuck, and I think it's a good name. It's a bit
great
unique,
name.
And it's who we are now. You can't change it.
Can't change it now. That's so funny. Porter Preston, the middle names brought together.
And they're both the maiden names of our maternal grandmothers.
No kidding.
We found that out a few months later.
So it's got a family lineage to it. Jack, it's been really great having you on and hearing the wonderful story and what you guys are doing over there. I'm going to wrap this up with a few last questions. You ready?
Okay. That's a quiz.
Right. Nah, I want to know about a quiz, but do you have a favorite business book?
Oh, I've read quite a few over the years. I knew you were going to ask this, though. And one that really, really made me think differently was a book called Customers for Life by a car dealer in Texas, Carl Sewell, I believe his name is. And the way he ran his car dealership, which is generally not people's favorite businesses to shop at,
No, yeah.
right, is, one of his sayings that summed up his philosophies is you never charge a customer for something you wouldn't charge a friend for. And so in our philosophy of customer service at Porter Preston, there's been more than dozens of times where one of our employees has grabbed a 50-cent bracket and jumped in the car and driven an hour away to take it over to a job site. And maybe they lost it, maybe we messed up. To us, that doesn't matter. First is get the customer happy, meaning our customer's customer. Get this job done, fix it. Mm-hmm. Then we worry about any expenses later on. And so then that statement really always stuck with me. And then the other one that I had on my desk when I had a blotter was the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Sure.
Sharpen the saw. And one of my favorites, which some people might doubt that I live by this, is seek first to understand, then be understood. Mm-hmm. And that's a work in progress with me and has been for 25 years, but it's powerful.
It is.
And as are the rest of those. That's what I'd sum it up as 2 things that really popped to mind.
I like that. Customers for Life and the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. When you get a chance, if you didn't see it when you walk around, we have it in giant letters up on the wall out there. Seek to understand before being understood. Mm-hmm. One of my absolute favorites. Obviously, you love what you do, Jack. That comes off in spades. But if you had to do something other than be the president and owner of Porter Preston, and it could be anything in the whole wide world, what would you do to spend your time?
Scuba diver instructor in the Caribbean.
Scuba diving instructor in the Caribbean. Jack, I did not see that coming.
Though.
Okay.
I've never scuba dived.
Oh.
And I've never been in the Caribbean except for a trip to Jamaica.
Okay.
But I want to go.
That's it. That would be your dream. Scuba diving instructor in the Caribbean, having only been to the Caribbean once and never scuba dove. All right. We'll have to find a way to make that happen for you. Okay. Jack, what's something that you learned early in your life or early in your career that you think's helped propel you to all the success that you've had?
This is actually a title of a book I read last year, but it summed up, I think, how I think about a lot of things, and everything's figure-outable. It's a saying Margie and I use it back and forth in the office a bit. It's, what are we going to do? Well, we know we can figure it out, and if you approach it with that attitude, you'll figure it out. And sometimes your choices might not be as neat and clean and as all-encompassing as you want. But if you look at it like, I don't know what to do, well, I know I can figure it out. It just might not be the great answer. It might not, because situations get thrown at you. But that saying has always been sticking in my mind. It's figure-outable. Mm-hmm. We just got to figure out what to do.
Yeah. I love that. It's figure-outable. I like that a lot.
I can't take credit for the word. It's the title of a book.
Okay. Well, I still like it.
It has a lot of good points in the book.
Very good attitude. What's something, Jack, that you learned later in your life or later in your career that if you went back and told young Jack, and if young Jack would listen to you, it would make a huge impact in his life?
Follow your dreams, and time. I read this, and I'm still a big fan of Bruce Lee. And he had this one chapter, the Zen and the Martial Arts, was a lot of his writing and his philosophies. He was quite the philosopher in a way. And he said, time is all you got. You can either waste it or you can spend it. It's up to you.
Jack, I'm going to leave it right there. That is fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on, sharing your story and talking with me today. I really had a great time.
Well, Ari, I did as well. Much more than I thought I would. I was a little nervous in the beginning.
Well, thank you so much.
As my wife will tell you, I'm really shy.
Oh, yeah.
Made in America with Ari Santiago is brought to you by CompassMSP.
Thanks for listening and spending some time with me today. My goal is to help build a strong manufacturing community, and it would be impossible to do without all of you.